They stole from me in daylight, but the real mastermind stayed in the shadows, smiling behind her brother's shoulder. You'd think betrayal shows up loud, a fight, a slammed door, a dramatic scene. But sometimes it wears a polite smile, shakes your hand, and tells you how proud it is of what you've built. That was Alex, my wife's older brother. The first domino in the chain. The business had started small, one custom coffee table I built in the garage. I posted it online and it sold in hours. Then a dining set. Then a full line of handcrafted modern furniture. 2 years later, I had a team of 6, a rented warehouse, and a brand name, Red Pine Design, that was starting to mean something. My wife Hannah had been supportive from the beginning. She helped with social media and branding. She had an eye for color palettes, mood boards, tone of voice. She wasn't hands-on with production or finance, but she was present. That meant something. Then came the idea of bringing in Alex. He's good with people, Hannah said one evening, stirring vegetables in a skillet. You know, he used to work in corporate sales. Used to, I muttered. He just needs something to believe in. Like my business? He believes in you. Just talk to him. I didn't want family in the business. But Hannah rarely pushed. So when she did, I listened. Alex came over for dinner the next night with a 6-pack and a handful of ideas, some bad, some not terrible. He talked big, wore designer shoes, and dropped buzzwords like scalability and angel rounds without knowing what they meant. Still, I was polite. I let him finish. Then I asked what he was offering. Connections, he said. A guy I know helps early-stage brands get noticed. He's low profile but aggressive. Knows how to build buzz. You just need a growth strategy and a hook. I wasn't sold. But Hannah chimed in. Alex could help build relationships. You're stretched thin already. I was. Managing fulfillment, design, supplier contracts. I hadn't had a day off in 6 months. If Alex could relieve pressure, maybe it was worth a shot. I agreed to let him consult. No title. No authority. Just access to our marketing plans and supplier contacts. That's when things began to shift. Within 2 weeks, Alex had convinced Hannah to start redesigning our website. More aspirational, he said. Less woodworker, more lifestyle brand. Suddenly, we were investing in a rebrand I hadn't approved. The colors were wrong. The copy didn't sound like me. But Hannah insisted it was where we needed to go. Then Alex introduced a new fulfillment partner. Said he could get better rates through a guy he trusted. The paperwork looked fine. The rates were decent. The name on the vendor form was GP Logistics. I thought we used Greenline? I asked. We did, Hannah replied, barely looking up. But this'll save us 18% annually. I reviewed the documents. Looked legit. I signed off. That was mistake number 1. 3 months passed. Orders grew. I should have been thrilled, but something felt off. Our margins were tightening. Materials were arriving late. 2 long-time vendors said they hadn't been paid, despite checks clearing on our end. When I brought it up to Hannah, she shrugged. Alex is handling payments with the new system. That was mistake number 2. I sat down that night with all our recent invoices and vendor logs. It took hours, but I found it. A discrepancy in material cost reporting. We were being charged 25% more per unit than before, even though the official rate looked unchanged. The overage was being routed through GP Logistics. I called their listed number. Voicemail. I emailed. Bounce back. The website? 1 page. No real address. I confronted Hannah. Who exactly is behind GP Logistics? I asked. She paused. One of Alex's friends. Gavin something. He set it up for shipping. You met him? Not really. Just on a call once. Her eyes didn't match her voice. I met Gavin Price 2 weeks later by accident. Or so I thought. We were hosting a backyard cookout. Alex brought a few friends, one of whom was Gavin. He was lean, polished, well-dressed. Said he worked in consulting. I watched him speak to Hannah near the grill for almost 10 minutes, close enough to whisper, too far for me to hear. When I introduced myself, he smiled like he already knew everything about me. Love the brand, he said. Clean lines. Great materials. I'd never told him the name of my company. After that night, things accelerated. Orders started going missing. A customer emailed saying their order came from Craftwell Interiors instead of Red Pine. I Googled it. The site was nearly identical to mine. Layout, font, product names. I pulled the WHOS data. Registered 3 months ago. Under Gavin Price. That's when I started watching everything. Hannah's laptop. Her tablet. The shared calendar. She was meeting with Gavin once a week, sometimes twice. Always for logistics. Always during hours I was in the shop. I didn't accuse her. Not yet. I needed to be sure. But in my gut, I knew. She and Alex hadn't just gone behind my back. They'd sold my business out from under me. And Gavin? He wasn't just some side player. He was the architect. The man behind the curtain. The one pulling the strings and letting others take the fall. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. Instead, I quietly started to prepare. Pulled bank statements. Archived invoices. Downloaded backups. Froze lines of credit and set alerts on the accounts. Then I made a reservation. A sleek cabin 3 hours outside Austin. Private. Quiet. Fast internet. The perfect place for a company retreat. I invited Hannah. Told her I wanted to reconnect, refresh, and plan the next phase. She said yes. Then I invited Alex. He said he'd bring some ideas. And I made sure Gavin got the third invite, through Alex, of course. I wanted them all in the same room. Because that's where it would happen. That's where the masks would fall. That's where I'd take it all back. If you want to see someone's true face, give them space to relax and just watch. The cabin sat at the edge of Lake Travis, nestled between pines, with a wide glass front and a panoramic view of still water. It was the kind of place that said we're all friends here, while quietly stripping away all distractions. That's exactly what I needed. We arrived Friday evening. I'd driven up earlier, unloaded, and checked all the hidden cameras twice. One in the living room lamp, another over the kitchen island, and a third motion-activated in the study. Nothing wild. Nothing illegal. Just insurance. Hannah and Alex pulled in around 7, tired but cheerful. They brought wine, laptops, and a shared assumption that this weekend was about growth and brand vision. Gavin wasn't coming until morning. He had a conference call, Alex said. I smiled and nodded. We made dinner, and I let the conversation drift. I didn't press. I didn't question. I just let them talk. That's when the cracks started to show. Alex was overly confident, tossing around numbers he couldn't possibly verify, claiming we'd double profits if we followed the new model. He didn't know I'd already seen that new model live on Craftwell's site. Hannah played along, using phrases she never used before. Brand dilution, equity conversation, exit path. None of those were from her. I'd been with her long enough to know when her words weren't her own. That night, I lay awake in the loft, staring at the beams overhead while my mind mapped the weekend. Saturday morning was for Gavin. Saturday afternoon was for Truth. He arrived just before noon. Black Tesla, dark sunglasses, and a messenger bag that probably cost more than my first truck. He walked in like he owned the place, or was preparing to. Greeted Hannah with a warm smile and a subtle hand on her lower back. I didn't flinch. Gavin, I said, extending my hand. Glad you could join us. Wouldn't miss it, he replied, eyes cool and searching. Alex poured coffee and started pitching his agenda like we were already in a boardroom. Gavin chimed in, guiding the flow without taking control. Classic strategy. They showed mock-ups of the new direction, branding elements I'd never approved, mock-up labels using Craftwell Interiors as a temporary internal project name. That's when I stopped him. So this internal project just happens to have a live website? Silence. Alex blinked. Gavin stayed calm. We were testing market reaction. A/B strategy. Nothing official. Strange, I said. Because your LLC filed 3 months ago. And you've already run ad traffic through my product photos. Some of which are copyright protected. And some that were taken in our shop. Now Gavin's face tensed, not fear, but calculation. Hannah shifted in her seat. I noticed the way she glanced at Gavin first before speaking. Ethan, we didn't mean to. I know exactly what you meant to do, I interrupted. And I let you. Because now I have everything I need. I dropped the folder on the table. Invoices, contracts, screenshots of overlapping code, email metadata, even cell tower logs showing Gavin and Hannah at the same address during supposed work hours. I didn't accuse them of an affair. I didn't need to. The implication was more powerful when unspoken. Alex stood up like he was about to defend himself, but sat back down when I locked eyes with him. You were sloppy, I said to Gavin. Using my vendors, rerouting my shipping through shell companies, and coaching Hannah to approve fake consulting expenses. You might have pulled it off, if not for one thing. Gavin raised an eyebrow. You thought I wasn't watching. For the next 30 minutes, no one said a word. Hannah sat there frozen. Alex looked like he wanted to crawl out of his skin. Gavin remained still, waiting for the hammer. But I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I simply opened my laptop and played a short video camera footage from the cabin's office, Recorded just an hour earlier. Gavin, sitting alone, calling someone. I'd muted the sound, but the subtitle caption said enough. He still thinks it's about Hannah and Alex. Once we launch Craftwell, we'll bleed him dry. Gavin snapped the laptop closed mid-playback. You recorded us? No, I replied calmly. I recorded you. There's a difference. That evening, I told them I'd be staying through Sunday. Alone. I didn't kick them out. I didn't need to. They left by sunset. Alex didn't look me in the eye. Hannah tried to say something, maybe an apology, maybe an excuse, but I walked past her and shut the door. The next morning, I contacted my attorney. Sent every file. Filed breach notices. Triggered IP protection clauses in our contracts. Launched a takedown request on Craftwell's entire platform. It was gone by Monday afternoon. I changed all company passwords. Moved funds into a separate LLC. Notified our suppliers. And posted a public update about restructuring and fraud prevention. None of it named names. But everyone close to the industry understood. Hannah moved in with her brother for a while. Gavin disappeared from LinkedIn. Alex went silent. I didn't chase any of them, because that would have meant they still mattered. But I did one thing before I fully let it go. I launched a new limited edition line of furniture. Name? The Shadow Series. Each piece engraved with a small Latin phrase on the underside. Vidi. Memini. Vici. I saw. I remembered. I won. You don't have to burn bridges when you build a better one right next to them. By Monday, the storm had only just begun, but I was already holding the umbrella. I didn't go to the shop. I worked from my home office, a place I once used for creative sketches and would finish samples. Now it was a war room. Folders stacked high, coffee going cold, legal pads scribbled with timelines and names. I hadn't written this much by hand since college. The first order of business was containment. I needed to isolate the infection, separate Red Pine from everything Alex, Hannah, and Gavin had touched. First, the website. I had our developer dig into the back end. Sure enough, there were scripts rerouting visitor data to another domain. Craftwell. The plugins were hidden in a code injection module labeled SEO Optimizer. Cute. We removed every trace of it. Changed servers. Archived logs. Then I went to the business credit cards, flagged 6 transactions, all listed under vague consulting names but billed to a Delaware address. I cross-checked it with my Gavin folder. Match. Those transactions formed the legal core of my case. I called my lawyer, Emma Singh, sharp, calm, and ruthless in litigation. She didn't ask me if I wanted to sue. She asked how loud I wanted to make it. Quiet, I told her. But sharp. She liked that answer. Emma filed an injunction to freeze the business accounts tied to GP Logistics and Craftwell Interiors. Within 72 hours, the court approved it. Their funds were frozen. I also submitted cease and desist letters to platforms hosting their assets, Shopify, Instagram, even Etsy. They all came down, one by one. The beautiful part of building something honest is how clean your records are. I could prove every design came from Red Pine. Every supplier relationship. Every prototype photo. My name was on every patent. Gavin had filed for new ones, but they were nearly identical to mine. And timestamped after. It wasn't just theft. It was sloppy theft. That week, I posted a single message on Red Pine's official social media. We've removed third-party partners who violated our trust and intellectual property. Our core team remains, and our mission hasn't changed. New pieces coming soon. Better. Stronger. Ours. No names. But names weren't needed. 2 days later, Hannah texted me. Hannah, we need to talk. This has gone too far. I didn't reply. She tried again. This time, voicemail. She sounded angry, confused, like a magician whose audience stopped clapping. Then came the email. Long, emotional. She blamed Alex. She claimed Gavin misled her. She said she never meant for it to get so personal. She missed the point entirely. It was always personal. You don't just co-sign the dismantling of your partner's life and call it business. Alex went a different route. He sent me a letter through a mediator. Legal jargon wrapped around a weak apology. Claimed he didn't know the extent of what Gavin was planning. Said he was used. That might have worked if he hadn't profited. I sent a reply through Emma. One line. You weren't used. You were useful. Gavin didn't say a word. He just vanished, pulled down profiles, cut off his phone, rerouted his LLC. But not fast enough. The legal notice from Emma's firm still found him. His name wasn't on everything that was intentional, but it was on just enough. We filed civil claims in 3 counties. Breach of contract, IP infringement, business fraud. Emma said the damages we'd win wouldn't make me rich. That's fine. I told her. They're not for profit. They're for principle. Meanwhile, I got back to work. But something had shifted. I didn't just want to rebuild. I wanted to refocus. So I closed the old warehouse. I let go of 4 non-core employees. Not because they'd done anything wrong, but because I didn't want echoes of the past in the walls. I leased a smaller studio across town. Brighter. Cleaner. No history. I redesigned the brand from the ground up. No more Red Pine. That name had been stained, even if quietly. The new brand? Knox and Grain. A nod to my roots and what I'd learned. The first product line, the Witness series. Each piece named after phases of betrayal, blind spot, second glance, the pivot, the echo. Too subtle for some. Too sharp for others. Perfect for me. A month after the dust settled, I went to an industry showcase in Dallas. No booth. Just a visitor pass and a notepad. That's when I saw her. Hannah. She stood near a display for some upstart brand, not Craftwell, something new. She wore a fake smile and a name tag that said creative consultant. She was talking to someone, laughing a little too hard. Then she saw me. She didn't wave. She didn't look away. She stared, just long enough to signal that she wanted to talk. I didn't give her the chance. I turned and walked out. On the drive back, I stopped at a gas station for coffee. While waiting in line, a man tapped me on the shoulder. You the guy behind Knox and Grain? I hesitated. Yeah, that's me. He held out his hand. Your new line? Brilliant. Raw. Real. I used to buy Red Pine, but this stuff feels honest. That word stuck with me. Honest. That was the line they crossed, not just stealing ideas or cash or product. They stole the truth out of the work. Tried to sell lies wrapped in aesthetics. But I'd taken it back. And now I was building something no one could fake. Everyone looked at Alex. Everyone blamed Hannah. But the real threat was the man who never raised his voice, just his margins. After everything, I still hadn't figured out one thing. Gavin's angle. Sure, he'd siphoned money through shell vendors and tried to steal the product line. But something about it didn't fit. He wasn't just opportunistic, he was methodical, strategic, and way too prepared. No one builds a perfect counterfeit business model unless they've done it before. Emma and I dug deeper. She brought in a forensic consultant, a guy named Leo who used to work for the FBI. Within 2 days, Leo uncovered records of Gavin running similar partnership scams in 3 states, all involving small to mid-size founders with rapidly growing businesses and weak legal infrastructure. Sound familiar? One case in Ohio looked almost identical. The founder was a woman named Callie Whitmore, designer, solopreneur, strong Etsy presence. Gavin had advised her for 6 months before launching a rival brand using her exact suppliers. Lawsuit was still pending, but she'd lost 60% of her audience. He wasn't just a thief. He was a blueprint predator. That made sense of something Hannah once said, back when things were still good. She was on the phone in the kitchen late one night. I had just come out of the shop, dusty and tired, and heard her laugh. She was saying, "No, he's not suspicious. He thinks Alex is the one pushing the changes. Honestly, I think you're too subtle sometimes." At the time, I thought she was talking to a brand consultant. Now I knew better. Emma drafted a new complaint. This time, it wasn't just about breach of contract or IP violations. We added fraudulent inducement and conspiracy to commit commercial espionage. That got attention. It also got Gavin's name on a federal watch list. But he didn't respond. That was his game. Act before the law catches up, then ghost into the next state, the next client, the next facade. Still, we got lucky. A former accountant who worked for one of Gavin's previous shells contacted us. Her name was Melissa. She'd seen his face once in a Zoom call, but knew the operation inside out. She was young, idealistic, and done being a pawn. She gave us everything: routing numbers, burner accounts, fake invoices, even emails from Hannah. Nothing explicit, but enough to confirm that Gavin had orchestrated the entire scheme, with Hannah and Alex as pawns. No, not pawns. Willing participants. Alex thought he was the brains. Hannah thought she was in control. But Gavin was the black cardinal, operating behind curtains, never in the spotlight, but always pulling the strings. I remember the day Emma called and said, "We have enough. You can settle. Or press it all the way." I didn't hesitate. All the way. We launched a coordinated press release through a reputable trade publication. No names, but plenty of facts. A warning to small business owners: protect your designs, vet your partners, watch for shell vendors. I listed everything we learned. The article exploded in the community. Within days, 3 other business owners reached out to me, each with a Gavin in their story. Different aliases. Same MO. And just like that, his game was over. Hannah emailed again. This time her tone was flat. You don't understand. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just wanted to be part of something bigger. Gavin promised we'd be equal partners. He said you'd slow everything down. Funny thing about betrayal, the justifications are always the same. It wasn't personal. You didn't listen. I thought I was helping. No one ever just says, I was greedy. I got caught. One day, I passed by our old house. We'd sold it after the split, mostly at Hannah's insistence. Too many memories, she said. But I knew the real reason. She needed the equity. Gavin had promised her they'd start a boutique design firm together. She believed him. Of course she did. People like Gavin know exactly how to talk to someone who's afraid they're being left behind. As I drove by, I saw it. A for lease sign in the yard. Empty windows. Peeling paint near the garage. They never made it work. Knox and Grain, meanwhile, was thriving. I kept the studio small. Only 5 employees. We didn't scale fast, we scaled right. Emma's legal victory gave me new credibility in the industry. Suddenly, other brands wanted to collaborate. A licensing deal came in from a California interiors brand. Then an invite to an architecture show in New York. But I turned most of it down. Because I wasn't chasing growth anymore. I was chasing craft. Still, I had one card left to play. Melissa, the whistleblower, mentioned that Gavin was preparing to move into real estate design next, using fake testimonials and a ghost portfolio. His site was in development. New logo, new name, Urban Nest Design. I bought the domain name. Then I bought 5 variations of it. Then I redirected all of them to a public landing page titled, A Warning for Creators, How to Spot a Corporate Grifter. It listed no names. But the screenshots, the documents, the redacted wire logs, they told the story. I don't know how many people saw it, but I know Gavin did. Because a week later, the domain was hit with a cease and desist from a law firm in Nevada. Emma laughed when she read it. You want to take it down? I shook my head. No. I want to add a new section. That night, I stood in my studio. The last piece from the Shadow series was complete. A minimalist bookshelf made from reclaimed black walnut. Matte finish, no visible hardware. Clean. Precise. Unforgiving. I titled it, The Cardinal. Only one was made, and I never sold it. It still sits in my office today, right across from the door, so that when people come in, they see it, and I remember. People don't always pay for what they did. Sometimes, they pay for what they almost got away with. 3 months after the lawsuits were filed, most of the noise had quieted. The legal process churned forward, motions, filings, hearings, but my part was mostly done. Emma and her team handled the rest. Gavin was a ghost now. His aliases were flagged in every database that mattered. The corporate world might not have known his name, but the design world sure did. He'd become a whispered cautionary tale in startup forums and creative circles. Alex had disappeared back into whatever rock he'd crawled out from. He sold his condo and moved to Arizona, or at least that's what Hannah said when she tried to meet, just for closure. She emailed me one last time. I lost everything. Can we talk? Just for an hour? You owe me that much. But here's the thing. I didn't owe her anything. She had made her choices, and those choices had consequences. Not because I punished her. I didn't need to. Life did it for me. That fall, I flew to Chicago for a design expo, not as an exhibitor, but as a featured speaker. My topic? When trust fails, how to rebuild without starting over. The room was packed. Small business owners. First-time founders. Creatives who'd been burned. I didn't talk about Hannah or Alex or Gavin by name. But I didn't need to. The story stood on its own. After the speech, a young woman approached me. Early 30s, sharp suit, anxious eyes. My partner tried to lock me out of my own brand last month, she said. He offered to buy me out from the business I built. I nodded. Did you sign anything? No. Then he didn't win. She smiled. Shaky, but real. That made the whole thing worth it. Back home, the shop was alive again. We'd launched a new line, the Ashwood Collection. Soft gray tones, smoked finishes, exposed grain patterns. It was our quietest, most personal set yet. Every piece was inspired by recovery, not revenge. I hired a part-time apprentice. a veteran named Chris who'd gotten into woodworking during his recovery from PTSD. He didn't talk much, but his hands were steady and his instincts were clean. I didn't need anything else. Working with him reminded me why I started in the first place. Wood doesn't lie. It shows every cut, every dent, every correction. But if you know what you're doing, even a flawed piece can be shaped into something lasting. One evening in November, I found something strange. An anonymous package at the studio door. No return address. No note. Just a flat envelope. Inside were 5 glossy product mock-ups, fake ones. Each bore the Craftwell Interiors logo, featuring my old red pine designs, slightly tweaked, and a caption. The originals. Reimagined. It wasn't signed, but I knew who sent it. Not Hannah. Not Alex. Gavin. A power move? A goodbye? A last pathetic flex? Didn't matter. I took the pages, fed them through the bandsaw, and turned the strips into kindling. They burned quick. Later that week, Emma called. We settled. She sounded pleased. We've secured a full injunction against Gavin and his aliases. His LLCs are shut down. Financial penalties are locked. You'll receive a payout from asset liquidation. Not much, but symbolic. Enough to buy a pizza? I joked. Enough to buy the oven. But money was never the point. The win wasn't in dollars. It was in clarity. In standing on the other side of disaster, knowing you didn't let it break you. I could walk into my studio now, run my hand along a finished table, and know, this survived. I survived. One rainy Saturday, I stopped by an old coffee shop I hadn't visited in a year. Back then, Hannah and I used to go every Sunday. Same booth, same drinks, same weekend routine. This time, I sat alone. I opened my notebook and sketched a bench design, something simple and clean. 2 people could sit on it. Or 1 person and their peace of mind. That's when I heard her voice. Hannah. She stood in line, ordering a tea. She didn't see me. And for a moment, I considered walking over. Just to look her in the eyes. Just to see what remained. But I didn't. Because there was nothing left to say. She got her drink, turned around, and saw me. She froze. I nodded once. Calm. Controlled. Then I turned the page of my notebook. And kept drawing. You see, revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's quieter. It's success after sabotage. It's dignity after humiliation. It's peace, hard-earned and unapologetic. At some point, you stop trying to prove you were right. You just start living like you already are. A year had passed. 12 months since the weekend at the lake house. Since the confrontation. Since the unraveling. And yet, when I walked into my studio that morning, the sun cutting across the floor like a spotlight, it felt like I was just beginning. Knox and Grain wasn't a startup anymore. It was solid. Profitable. Trusted. Our order books were full 3 months out. 2 new apprentices had joined Chris, and we just signed a custom design contract with a boutique hotel chain that insisted on local craftsmanship and founder-led production. They didn't want mass market. They wanted me. One of the final legal letters came through that day. Gavin had filed for bankruptcy under one of his aliases. The judge denied discharge on the grounds of fraud. His remaining assets, a leased BMW, a townhouse in someone else's name, and 3 laptops were seized and auctioned. Emma called it a footnote. I called it poetry. That night, I stayed late in the studio, alone. I wasn't working. I was thinking. There was one last piece I hadn't built, the one that lived in my head the whole year. I'd sketched it a dozen times, but never committed to the final design. It was personal. Too personal, maybe. I laid out the wood, dark cherry, with a striking flame grain that reminded me of smoke curling in still air. I marked it carefully. No power tools. Just chisels, clamps, patience. The bench took 6 nights. When it was done, I didn't post it online. Didn't list it in the catalog. I engraved one line underneath the frame. You left too soon. I stayed long enough to build this. A month later, I got a letter. An actual paper letter. Handwritten. From Alex. He'd moved to Flagstaff. Got a job managing a co-op kitchen. Said he missed design, but couldn't go back to that world. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just said, "You were right. About all of it." I didn't realize how much Gavin had planned until it was too late. I was a fool. Hannah was worse. I didn't reply. Some people say sorry to clean their conscience, but they don't want to get their hands dirty to fix what they broke. 2 weeks later, a DM popped up on the business Instagram. It was from a man named Daniel. Said he was an attorney representing a private buyer. They wanted to know if the Cardinal was for sale. I smiled. That piece, the black walnut one from the Shadow series, had never been listed. But word must have spread. I told him it wasn't available. He offered 5 figures. I said no. He offered more. I still said no. Because the cardinal wasn't built for sale. It was built as a mirror. A reminder. Some stories don't need to be told again. They just need to be remembered. That fall, we hosted our first Knox and Grain Open Studio weekend. No RSVP. No press. Just locals, friends, and people who'd followed our work since the early days. I gave a tour, let folks walk through the workspace, touch the grain, smell the oils and stains. At one point, a middle-aged man stopped in front of a tall cabinet from the Ashwood collection. He said, "You know what I like about your pieces?" "What's that?" "They look like they've seen something. Like they've been through something. Even when they're new." I nodded. "That's the idea." Hannah never tried to contact me again. The grapevine said she moved out west. Tried consulting. Maybe started over. I don't wish her harm, but I don't miss her either. She got swept up in someone else's fantasy, and by the time she realized it was a con, the damage was done. The lies were too deep, the trust too far gone. You can't unsplinter a board once it's cracked down the middle. You can only make something new out of the pieces. Sometimes, late at night, I walk past the cardinal and run my fingers along the back rail. The grain is smooth now, but the edge is still sharp, just the way I left it. That's the end of the story, really. Not the revenge, not the loss, not even the rebirth. Just a man, in a workshop, with a steady hand, and peace. Hard one, unshakable, mine.